Hey guys, what's going on? I've been grinding the 6v6 patch. First and foremost, that I want to get right out of the way, guys. Pick the Reinhardt character and put the shield in front of your team. They juiced this guy's stats for some reason where, while he's not as good fighting the enemy, what putting the shield in front is going to do is hard mark out a load of bad team compositions just by shielding your team. Like 2,000 hit points of barrier. If they don't have their own barrier, it's going to be much, much harder for them to play. Not that it can't be countered. It is counterable, and it isn't necessarily even the top meta comp or heroes, I would say, but it just makes a lot of other inefficient comps automatically much, much worse, especially when you combine with the fact of other things that are very good in the meta, like speed. Speed characters are pretty insane. I'd also put Juno and Lucio in A tier. Pick one. I've seen probably Juno is a bit better still, just like she is in 5v5. Keep in mind, the speed ring is worse, and Lucio didn't really get any changes if I recall correctly. However, speed ring is so freaking OP for moving two tanks around. Like, just getting into position, you can auto win with these heroes, right? Fight in a choke, force them and funnel them into a choke, and you're going to see the enemy shoot out a shield, and no one can get out. So if they're running Mauga Hazard and fighting your Rhine, if they're running Diva Doomfist and they're fighting your Rhine, at any point if they're fighting your Rhine and he just regenerates his shield, you can auto win with this. Now, not necessarily the top most competitive comp that's going to beat everything, but those are just something to keep in mind. Like, you really have to dedicate to getting past the Rhine if he's funneling you into a choke. All right, what else we got here? Few characters in the tank list that I want to populate in B tier. We're going to say Zarya and Ramatra. I see a lot of Zarya, don't think she's that good. Ramatra, don't see so often, also don't think he's that good. If you're looking for off tanks to pair with Ryan, I'm going to say Diva, Junker Queen, maybe Ramatra, but especially since he's got 2,000 barrier health, you don't really need to be brawling, exchanging on the front line. Like, once you get them funneled into the spot you want them, you auto win just by holding that space. And there's so many characters that either have speed and mobility to get away. Zarya just isn't really cutting it for me. If anything, I think maybe double bubble with a Winston is a little bit more effective, or bubbling a dive tank, but having two brawler tanks on the point, it makes it very easy for them to use mobility tanks to go at your backline, and you don't really have any peel. So instead, we're going to put Diva way up here at the top at S tier. Diva fixes everything. Any comp you want to run, put a Diva on, and I swear you just play defensively on the off tank position. Diva is such an insane hero, guys. It's remarkable what cycling, even just 2 seconds of DM. Remember, you play corners, you play the off angles, you play to peel, you play to just manage your resources and peek out and suck up the entire 6-man enemy team potentially worth of damage for 2 seconds. You interact with ultimates, you counter ultimates. Try to remember that for years and years of competitive Overwatch 1, these two characters, Diva and Lucio, had a near 97 to 99% pick rate across years of time from the highest level of play. But if you use those strategies at the average tier of play, you're also going to notice, kind of similar to the thing I said about shielding, is like an important thing to remember about 6v6 guys is these characters that are more about their offense. Like, let's put all of these tanks here for now. They all get shut off by Diva, all of them, because you don't really need your tank to deal the damage in 6v6. You need to cycle defensive cooldowns, or alternatively initiate. Those are like the two things you can do. Like, Ryan can get in with your team and hold space and punish it. Diva is going to peel and set up and counter ultimates, especially, I'm going to say ult over and over again, like being able to interact with ults. They use the cage fight, they use whole hog, they pull them all together with one of these tanks. Having these two characters that have defenses allows your team to survive things that they would automatically die against. And this is like the difference between 5v5 and 6v6, right? Like, in 6v6, you can choose enough defenses that you don't actually have to die to a lot of things in the game. Whereas in 5v5, there's always going to be openings to create kills. So the team comp itself can sustain itself so well that if you just pick the right heroes, you don't necessarily have to ever lose a team fight or even die, basically. Your team comp selection could be so much more powerful than the enemy that you might not ever even have a kill on your team. There won't be any opening if you pick heroes correctly. So we're going to see, as I populate the list here, the tier list rankings is going to be quite severe, honestly. But I want to pick up the pace a little bit here, because once we establish these fundamentals, you're going to see it kind of make sense throughout the rest of the list. I'm going to say Sigma, the game's way too fast for him right now. Even on sniper maps, there's no point to play this. Ryan's really sick with a shield. Sig's got a good ult, but the game just isn't funneled into his position enough. I have seen on sniper maps, full poke comps are okay, but just about every other map, and remember, there's lots of maps in the game right now. Many of them are very brawly. There's a few sniper dedicated maps in the pool overall, but now that they've added Clash and Flashpoint, it's like there's less and less sniper maps over time. You'd think Hog would be bad, but actually, since they buffed his damage, he's okay. He's going to put in the middle of the pack here, because I think he's just kind of flexible. He'll be able to get his own frags. You can play that solo QE style, but again, he's not going to be able to go at the front line, make space on the front line, or do any of that stuff. He can punish divers maybe better than some other options here. Like, I actually think he's better than Zarya, frankly. I see Zarya get picked all the time, but I think Hog, when he does work, works harder. And so I'm putting it there. Orisa and Mauga, I think Mauga's a do-nothing character. Like, if these heroes are good and viable and are going to be safe and secure against it, like, why ever pick this character? How could you ever get value against the shield, which you don't do extra critical against, and a diva? If they go Mauga, you go Ryan diva, and there's no reason you should ever lose a team fight to this character. Orisa, I kind of feel similar. She does even less than Mauga somehow. Wrecking Ball surprised me. I thought Ball would be good, but I think he's bad. I think the way that his stats are right now and the fact that he lost his shield tech in 6v6 Overwatch 2, a lot of characters are amped up with their effectiveness. They have like improvements otherwise, or there's just a lot of power creep in general in the game. Ball is not cutting it for me. Like, yes, he's mobile. So if you're really good at Ball, and more importantly, have one of these other tanks that I am going to put higher in the list, if you have another tank that is working with you, then Ball's okay, but he's not, don't expect him to do a lot alone. Nothing about him is that impressive, and a lot of characters are very self-sufficient now, so even solo attacking certain things isn't really good enough. And part of the reason why Ball's down here is just how much better these other dive tanks are, okay? I'm gonna put Winston somewhat above Rhine, just because he has a diving playstyle, and remember, Primal Rage is way better now, because you can boop the enemy tanks. So think about this. There's a bunch of these other shooter style tanks. You're just gonna be able to go in with Primal Rage, split them up, bring them towards your team and knock them out of position, knock them off the map. Primal Rage is insane right now. And the only reason I'm not putting them higher is just like the neutral fight without ultimates is really, really strong for these two picks as well. Hazard and Winston have a very, very similar playstyle. And while he's got a bubble, which is important, Hazard being able to divide and conquer on the front line, also has natural armor health. They kept him pretty good for 6v6. He's a very good tank in either version of the game. And for some reason, Doom is kind of like overperforming, I feel. Maybe because of the mobility and the skill expression, he's got those Overwatch 2 style improvements. Even though they put him down quite a bit and nerfed him, Doom can really funnel the engagement and take over the game. As long as he's not targeting the tanks, it can go very, very well. I've seen Joker Queen do pretty well, but I don't know if I'm going to put her at the top of B tier or the bottom of A. One of the coolest things about her is her Shout gives another speed option. So as an off tank, that's actually kind of interesting, especially if you're helping your tank get in. But then past that, a lot of the tanks have armor health, and there's probably easier ways to CC. I'm definitely putting her somewhere in between these two spots. Like, I don't really know. She's not reliable enough to be as good as these other picks. But let's say if you can't play these heroes, then maybe you feel like this was the one you would go to have more mechanical skill expression than the other picks in the game. She's definitely bad if you have one of these other tanks. Like, I don't want Queen paired with any of these tanks, because if the enemy has the good tanks, you just aren't going to be able to make space, get in, do anything, shoot anything. It's just really, really bad. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to look at the rest of the support roster right now. Support line, really, really important. Do not pick the Mercy character. Mercy is really, really bad unless you have a good Ball and Pharah, maybe. Mercy gets picked a lot, and I see her get absolutely run over by the good support lines, which enable the tank fight. With two tanks, having a character that specializes in aiding DPS is not good. And I'll say the same thing for Lifeweaver. I don't know, they're both down here. Both of their ults aren't that impactful, and the ult fight is incredibly important. The stats on these characters, the skill expression, just kind of bad, kind of slow, easily get run over, easily get picked apart in the back, easily AFK in the back and don't do much. If you want to pick an AFK style support, there's way better options. We'll put Zen in B because you can't run him on every map. He is exploitable, but the improvements they gave him to Discord Orb is going to hard destroy the bad tanks in the game for sure. You cannot pick a shieldless composition against a Zen and then turn a corner with your tank trying to hold space and get Discord on you, which takes longer for it to come off now. In 6v6, the team fights can go really fast. There's a lot of positioning exchanges, a lot going on, a lot of repositioning. So these really mobile, self-survivable supports, I'm going to put above Zen, in fact. I think their stats are not so impressive. Both of their ults are decent, not as good as some of the other support ults necessarily, but they can both duel, they can both move. They play Overwatch 2, and specifically the maps in Overwatch 2, quite well, as opposed to poor Ana, way down here. Ana's not very good. There isn't really a static tank battle going on, usually. Even with her cooldowns buffed, she looks really weak in this mode. Keep in mind, it's mainly because like they added a lot of these other characters since Overwatch 1, Juno and Kiri. At some points of Overwatch 2, Ana looked oppressive because of how strong she was against the single tank. But now the game's super fast and you can pick tanking defenses that either zone out or keep the tank alive even after you anti them. So this might be a bit of a playstyle thing. I see a lot of Ana players just like chucking their cooldowns at the tank and then they hold up a shield or they get cleansed by a bubble or whatever. Meanwhile, these other supports are consistently putting out value throughout the fight. Ana being all in on a cooldown or all in on a big ult makes her super risky and bad. She can look somewhat playable with good peel for her, but it's very expensive on the team comp and just straight up not worth it in my opinion, considering there's a high upside on other picks as well. It's not like you need Nano in order to have offense from the support role. There's a lot of other offense to go around, especially offense from ultimates. I might feel differently about this if for some reason Roadhog or Ramatra was a lot better because she's very good at anteing them. But if you just think about it, compared to Juno, who flexibly moves around the fight, adds a speed boost, and her ult gives AoE damage boost and heals anyway. Like, so why do I need to put it on one target and then be all in on these skill cooldowns? Juno's going to do a lot of the same things, just better. And a lot of times, if you try to play Ana, you're going to feel like you want to swap to Kiri or Moira to keep yourself alive because their dueling is way easier. For a static character, I'm going to put these others just a bit above them, Illari and Baptiste. In fact, I think Baptiste's potential could even go as high as A tier, but you would need teammates that play around it. Like, the better your teammates are, Bap's going to keep going up and up and up. I'm going to put him at the bottom of B tier for now. Sometimes I'm tricky with Baptiste because I don't play against him very often, and he's one of my best heroes. So sometimes I overrate him. He's pretty damn insane for Rein Diva. So if you play Rein Diva, Bap goes way up here, I think. It's hard for me to tell if, like, I think his ultimate isn't getting as much value as it should because there's so much escapability and survivability going on. It's hard to get team fights right in front of your window a lot of times. But I don't know if that's because my team wants to go fight off in random spots or if it's because of all the speed options that exist. They're just kiting away from it. You think it wouldn't be so hard with so many brawly points and objectives to fight on, but it's just that there's a lot of maps with a lot of open flank routes. And I'm noticing in 6v6, that means like you can get attacked from so many different spots. All of a sudden it's like, is there 2 or 3 people around this corner? You have no idea, right? So knowing how to position is very difficult right now. And it maybe is something that we get better at over time in 6v6. But for now, being flexible is like super important because otherwise you can't really do the counting that you normally would, knowing like, well, they would never send 3 people this way if their tank's over there. You kind of don't know at any point. And there's especially the Flashpoint is like this, and there's a lot of Flashpoint maps. Like, that's something we have to kind of come to grips with when we think about the power level of things in the meta. Is like, we've got more Clash maps, more Flashpoint. These very brawly maps are starting to outweigh the payload or slow style maps we're used to before. Brigitte is a nuts hero. Nuts hero. Really, really good. Didn't really get any changes, I don't think. With an extra teammate as well, you playing to just establish a backline safety blanket, especially in the games where you don't have a diva. Like, diva is the queen of this, but for whatever reason isn't so popular, it looks like. So especially if you're going against a lot of the bad tanks that don't have shields, you having Inspire for the whole team, 6 players of Inspire, is absolutely insane. Remember, this character broke 6v6 many years ago. The only reason I'm not putting her higher is like, I don't know, actually, no, the more I think about it, I mean, man, does she fix the game? Well, here's the thing. If you have any slow support that can get fought, Zen, Illari, Ana, Briggs S tier. You're going against Doom, Hazard. Those picks are popular. They're deemed strong right now. Or a lot of the bad tanks. Brig becomes a must pick automatically. I actually think you either run the speed support or you need the S tier peeler. These characters that add peel to the game, I'm putting at S tier. That's it. That's just how I feel about it. And honestly, 6v6, these are so good. I'm going to put these at the top of A tier because the way 6v6 works is some combination of these 4 entirely makes your whole team comp unkillable. When I talk about oppressive team comps in this format, getting to position faster with speed or being incredibly durable and peelable means the enemy being able to try to aggress, go for solo plays, and in some cases even committing in deep with a dive coordinated. These things are completely counterable by these picks being on your team. And if the enemy picks the wrong heroes, it'll be a very, very easy win for the superior team comp. Now, let's talk about the damage roll. They buff Soldier's damage, so he's actually pretty darn legit and easy to play. Put him in A tier. Skill expression of Tracer, always insane. Game's too slow for Hanzo. He's going to sit down there. Sojourn got a series of nerfs, but pretty good. Not as easy as Soldier. Remember, like, the tank battle's more important, and Soldier runs away a little bit easier, can heal himself. Your team's probably going to be focused on the tank battle and not healing you, not peeling for you. If you go a Mercy, they should lose the tank battle, honestly. If you got better aim, then maybe put Sojourn higher, but Bastion, game's way too fast. Pharah's okay, kind of like Sojourn. Hit your shots. And the nice thing about Pharah, I will put her slightly above, because if you have a bad tank line, Pharah's probably one of the better picks to go, because you at least have the options to get to the angles you need. Torb's fine. I think Sim's a little too slow, actually. And since there's other good speed options in the game, like you have an off tank that gives speed now, along with the supports that can give you speed, I just don't think you need the Telly at any point. And the rest of her kit's not that interesting. Reaper's really durable. That's nice against a lot of the tanks. He's quite good. I see a lot of Venture, especially with the CC resist. I might even put Venture in A tier. Gotta kind of think about this. Probably in here somewhere. Not so hard to counter, but very reliable. The skill expression is a bit limited, like the plays you're gonna go for. I will put Widow at the top of B tier. You would think would be counterable. You'd think you can put shields in the way, but there's no such thing as double shield. Like, look at the shields of the game. First of all, Sigma, not very good. Maybe Sigma Rhine against the Widow's okay, but I hardly ever see people pick 2 barrier tanks. Oddly enough, this probably would be okay against Widow, but it's not like you have old Orisa shield. You have one shield that's Rhine, and there's lots of angles of the map. So because of the map design, Widow's still pretty darn good. People think having multi-tank helps the Widow problem. Not really. In fact, it means it's even harder to go flank Widow on your own. So Widow's still very, very good. You might even put her up here in A tier. Yeah, I'm gonna put her in A tier. Yeah, there we go. Widow plays the Overwatch game really, really well right now. I haven't seen a lot of Ashe to know what I think. I think she's probably just middle of the pack. Same with Genji. Junk honestly helps all the tank fight quite a bit, and them losing CC resist matters a lot. So don't underrate Junk. Junk's very, very good. Magnate is utterly nasty against a lot of the dive tanks. Fan the Hammer is way too overpowered. I'm gonna put Cass even above Soldier. Game's too fast for Mei. There's a lot of picks that go above her or just aren't really bothered by what she does. She's durable, so she's like around here in these picks. These heroes that have buttons that keep them alive are all right. I think Echo's super hard to play and just not really worth it. All right, guys, well, that's the tier list I have for 6v6 on the launch version of the patch. I don't know if they're going to make balance tuning. I think what will happen if they didn't tune it is that these things will get even more severe. Like, a bunch of these picks are probably going to drop out. And as we start to learn what combos are more reliable, then a bunch of others will fall down the list and it'll populate closer to S tier. And they're going to be pretty obvious, like which heroes you have to play in order to counteract like the biggest percentage of the entire roster. But that's how we should expect 6v6 to work. The theory crafting is all part of the fun. I hope they had hero bands to try to make this mode even better. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like and don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.